despite the fact that our society is getting weaker, or the people within our society are getting weaker both physically and mentally, does not mean that everything is trauma, right? Not everything that's uncomfortable is trauma. Based on pop psychology, like everything's traumatic, and it's like this. It's not actually true. And the sad thing is, we are getting weaker. There's a 4-part process that takes place where, hard times create strong people. Strong people create easy times. Easy times create weak people, and then weak people create hard times. And it might not happen exactly that way, but that is the most simplest way to put it. And I do believe we're in the part right now where it's comfortable people, right? Weak people creating harder times, and we're going to be moving into harder times, as I feel like most people in America are feeling that right now. But regardless, I suppose you could say that because we are becoming weaker, it is easier to traumatize people. But not everything's traumatizing. I remember watching this thing on TikTok, or as my friend calls it, 2-week-old Instagram. Oh shoot, it's the other way around. 2-week-old TikTok is Instagram. I think I was watching on Instagram. Doesn't matter. Point being is this guy's crying about having to work an 8-hour shift with only one other person. And that was traumatizing to them. It's like, that's not trauma. That's just hard work, man. Like, you got to buck up and do it. But true trauma, in the way that I see it, that it does start in the mind. And when I say the mind, that's more of like your personality and your temperament and all that stuff. And then the brain catches on to that. And so you can actually traumatize the brain, which moves down the brain into the entire central nervous system. And so trauma is not necessarily just mental and emotional, it's also physical. And there is a lot of research that shows that trauma actually gets stuck in this flesh that encompasses your organs, called fascia or fascia, whatever it's called. So stress gets caught in there, and then you have chronic stress, or trauma gets caught in there, and then you have chronic stress, which leads to a whole slew of mental and physical illnesses. And so what I say is that trauma, not only does trauma get stuck in you, but you also get stuck in trauma. And so what I mean by that is, obviously the first example is that the trauma, gets stuck within your skin, within, that layer of fascia. But then on a mental capacity, you then are stuck in that trauma. You're stuck when that trauma took place. I worked with someone who was very traumatized at a young age. I believe it was 8 or 9 years old. Now here's the thing. This is where like inner child work comes, because that 8 or 9 year old still exists to this day and is it's a part of him. And so every now and then, it seems to be happening more often now, which is why we're starting back up. But what will happen is, when it's triggered, that little boy in him comes out. And so not only is the trauma stuck in him, but he's also stuck in the trauma.